Hello and welcome back to Cult Leader. I am your cult leader, Spencer Henry, and this is a Little Leader, our weekly catch up where I share some of the stories that you all send to me. If you have a story you'd like to share with the cult, send it on over to spencer@cultleader.com. Make sure to put Little Leader somewhere in the subject or the body of the email so I know where to find it. Or you can call in and tell me the story yourself. Call into the Cult Leader hotline at 747 322 0273. Again, that is 747 322 0273. And Cult Babes, in some very exciting news, this is, as promised, our first ever Cult Leader episode going on to YouTube. And so if you want to watch along, you can go to youtube.com/@cultleader and you can watch along as you listen if you're into that kind of thing. No pressure if not. We love just the classic listening route, okay? For some of you, this is going to be the first time that you see me, probably, because anytime I don't know, try and do some video, anything. I feel like people are always like, oh my God, I had no idea that's what you looked like, or you don't look like what I pictured at all. Sometimes that's probably for the better. Sometimes it's probably for the worse. But either way, here we are making our way into the YouTube universe. And I've mentioned before, we've been recording some of the obituary podcast episodes on YouTube. So I figured, hey, why not? Now seems like the perfect time to throw Cult Leader in the mix as well. So here we are. Today's episode is going to be more Cult Leader hotline focused because I don't know, I felt like that'd be more fun on video, like reacting to your guys' calls in real time. So we're going to be doing some of that, but we made it. We made it through the week. It is Friday, and happy Friday, Cult Babes. I could not be happier. I'm so ready for the weekend. Going to Palm Springs this weekend, and it's bittersweet. We're getting rid of the Palm Springs house that's been in my family for quite some time. And so doing my last little weekend down there, and I'm going to try and record some of my favorite spots. I feel like you guys DM me a lot for Palm Springs recommendations, so I'll definitely try and throw something together, probably either on Instagram or TikTok or I don't know, somewhere. Most things you can just find me by my name, Spencer Henry, or at Cult Leader or at Cult Leader Podcast. You guys know what you're doing. You guys are sleuths. You're just like me. Pretend I'm someone that your friend is going on a date with for the first time. I know you'll be able to track me down somewhere, but I am so excited to just get into some of these calls because I've been getting a lot of wild calls from you guys lately. Last week's that one story scared the shit out of me. The guy like ringing the bell in the front yard. But yeah, you can listen to Cult Leader also on anywhere that you listen to podcasts. So without further ado, let's just get in to the Cult Leader hotline. All right, let's see this first call we've got here.
Hey, Spencer. This is Maddie from Utah.
Hi,
I
Maddie.
called in and shared a story earlier, but I am a raging perfectionist, and it wasn't good enough. So I called in to share it again and hopefully make it a little less wordy. So this is a spooky story. And I want to preface this by saying that I have always been a skeptic, especially after leaving the Mormon church when I was about 15 years old. I kind of swung the pendulum to the other side, and I definitely leaned more atheistic. So when people would tell me ghost stories or like paranormal stories or spiritual stories, it wasn't that I didn't believe them. It was more that I thought that there had to be some sort of explanation. And I definitely have always recognized that like paranormal experiences are something that we as humans seem to share across the board, across all cultures and walks of life. Everyone seems to have these experiences to share. So I always just thought that it was part of like human psychology that was misunderstood, or that it was a scientific phenomenon that we didn't have a way to measure yet. And it definitely still could be that. But I had a terrifying experience back in March, so almost a year ago, that totally flipped my world upside down and has changed my perspective on everything related to the paranormal. So this story happened pretty shortly after I got my little puppy dog. She is the love of my life. Her name's Beverly. She's like an 8-pound Cavalier King Charles Spaniel that I had recently rescued. And we were just doing our nighttime routine. I was getting ready for bed, and we laid down to go to sleep. And after laying down, I had just gotten comfy, but I wasn't drifting off yet. And Beverly just started totally losing it. She was so upset and barking, and I couldn't get her to settle down. And so after maybe like 45 seconds of this, I still have my head on the pillow. I'm still closing my eyes, and I was just kind of trying to pet her and calm her down, but she was just super, super upset and super scared about something. So I finally like sat up pretty suddenly, and I was like, what? What is it? What are you barking at? And I looked over in the direction that she was barking, and what I saw scared the absolute shit out of me.
Oh my God, it leaves us on a cliffhanger. Hold on. There's got to be a part 2 in here.
Hey, Spencer, this is Maddie from Utah calling in again for part 2 of my spooky ghost story.
Imagine if that's where it ended.
I looked in the direction that Beverly was barking in, and I just totally like froze and gasped as I saw the shadow of a large man standing in my bedroom about 10 feet away from us. And I watch way too much true crime, so my first thought was that it was a home invader and my ass was getting murdered. And so I'm just completely frozen in fear looking at this man standing in my room, and all of these thoughts started to race, like, that's not a person. I locked the basement door behind me before I went to lay down for bed. And it definitely wasn't the stature of any of my family members who I live with. And so it kind of started to hit me that this was not a person that I was looking at. And the more I watched it, it wasn't moving at all. It was just standing there looking at me. The more I watched it, the more I realized that it didn't look quite right. Like, it was huge, super tall, at least like 6.5 feet tall, super broad-shouldered, and just completely pitch black, like 2-dimensional. It had no like detail to it. It looked like just a silhouette. And all the lights were off, but still, if you see a person in the dark, I feel like you can see some sort of dimension to them. But this thing was just totally solid black. And I kind of looked it up and down and realized that its shoulder was occluding part of the lamp that was behind it. And that's when, like, I totally, like, lost my shit. I was shaking. I was freaking the fuck out. And I was too scared to move. And the air felt tense. But it didn't necessarily feel evil or malignant. It just felt like I was being observed by this thing. And I was waiting for it to make a move, and it was waiting for me to make a move. And so I reached over without taking my eyes off of it and grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. And when I swept the flashlight over to where I was standing, or where it was standing, it disappeared. It just totally melted away under the light. And Beverly stopped barking. This is Maddie. This is part 3 of my Shadow Man story. So I turned my flashlight on and swept it over where this shadow of a man was standing, and it disappeared. And I know it wasn't a person because the person couldn't move that quickly to get out of the way. There wasn't anywhere for them to hide. And Beverly stopped barking, but it still felt like I was scared, absolutely shitless, like about to piss my pants. And the air still felt really tense, like it still felt really off and wrong. And so I did the only thing that I could think to do, and I just said out loud, "You're scaring the dog. You're not welcome here. Leave."
Yup.
And it immediately felt better. Like, I immediately lost that feeling of being observed and watched. And I was just kind of like sitting there processing what I had just seen. And I grabbed Bev and gathered my blankets and marched my ass upstairs to sleep on the couch. And the following morning, I told my parents about it, who are still LDS, and they believed me. They did an LDS blessing on the house. And I was just having this fucking existential crisis over that because I could not come up with an explanation. Like, I saw that thing and it was not a hallucination. I wasn't falling asleep. I hadn't just woken up. I'm not taking any strange medications. I've had no history of psychosis. And my little Bev saw it too. So unless I was having some sort of crazy shared psychosis with my dog, I saw a goddamn ghost. And I don't know what to believe anymore. I don't know how to view the world around me because everything has changed. And I think about that every day. And since then, I've also, like, just totally gone witchy as fuck. Like, woo-woo. I'm, like, collecting crystals and smudging my house. And I worked with some really amazing Navajo ladies that I know, and they taught me how to, like, protect my house and prevent that from happening again. But it's changed my life, and I don't know what to do about it. But anyway, thank you for all of the work you do. I love all of your podcasts. I love Obituary. I'm obsessed.
Uh, I think that was it. I think they got cut off, and then Maddie was like, "I'm not fucking calling again." Okay, that is terrifying. But here's the thing, because I think I'm very much like you. So I didn't grow up at all with any sort of organized religion or anything, and I've talked about that before. I feel like I've always just kind of been open. And I was actually talking to my boyfriend about this at dinner last night because I was like, I did a Reiki session recently, which was a Christmas gift that he got me. Was this 90-minute Reiki session, and it was something that in the past I probably never would have agreed to going to. Well, I don't want to say that. I just maybe I just had no interest in it before. I was never really that like super woo woo or into that kind of stuff. But the reason that he got it for me was because a couple months ago, I had gone to like this restorative yoga class with him. So he's super into all of that. And while we were there, the instructor of this yoga class came around while we were doing, I don't remember the name of it. I'm new to yoga and all of that, but you're just kind of laying there at the end. Like, is that Shavasana maybe? I don't know. You're laying there and you're just kind of like dozing off a little bit, or I was, and I felt this like whooshing in my head, and the instructor was doing Reiki around my head, and it was like the craziest experience because I always thought of like, okay, that can't actually be doing anything. You know what I mean? I have such like I think as someone with anxiety, we tend to look for just reasoning, like, okay, well, there has to be a reason for this. There has to be a reason this is happening. And sometimes you just don't know because that was fucking wild. And then the Reiki session was also fucking wild. And I'll talk about my experience maybe in length in another episode if you guys are interested in hearing about my Reiki experience. But that's something where I would have been like, hey, there's no way that's real. That's not fucking doing anything. And I do feel like for a really long time of my life, I was like this staunch atheist, like, oh, there's nothing. And I think especially after losing my parents, especially after I lost my mom, I was like, this is so fucked up. Like, there's no way that there's a God or this, that, the other. And now I think I'm much more open with my beliefs, and I'm so much more, I guess, inviting to a lot of like the woo woo, quote unquote, woo woo stuff. Um, because if there's one thing that I know to be fact in this world, that I know to be fact, and this isn't something that is fictional, like energy is obviously a very real thing. And I am such a believer in manifestation. I've talked about it before. People think that's fucking annoying. I get it. I also probably at certain points in my life would have been like, that's so annoying. Shut up. But manifesting is real, 100%. I think you can manifest a lot of different things. And so that for me is one of those things where you can't prove that it exists, right? But you've experienced it, and so that you have this uh, feeling that kind of throws you for a loop, right? Because here you are at one point believing in something, and then you're believing in nothing, and then something like this happens where yours wasn't, manifesting or Reiki, it was a paranormal experience. That sounds absolutely terrifying, but it makes you think like, okay, maybe there is more to all of this. I felt the same way with psychics for a while. I think I've really kind of wavered between like, is that something people can actually do? Are people really able to communicate or tap into these other frequencies where they're hearing from the other side or connecting to spirit on the other side or whatever? And then I had my psychic experience, which I told you guys about in a podcast episode, which was so unbelievably undeniable to me that I was like, okay, this proves the existence that certain people do have that gift, or I've just met the greatest con man of my life. Like, you still have to reckon that stuff in your head. But this experience sounds terrifying. And I feel like I've told this story on here, but there was like this was months ago, but Hot Dog was just going nuts in the middle of the night. And there's nothing scarier than your dog just absolutely losing their mind. So I'd already be scared, but seeing that shadow, everything, no. I mean, that's fucking wild. Terrifying. I too would have all the crystals there. I'd be smudging my house as well. Yeah, scary. Scary, but you did what I think you're supposed to do, right? Which is like tell the spirit. That's what they say to do, like the quote unquote experts. They say you need to tell them like, you're making me uncomfortable, you need to leave, or like, you can't stay here. And then supposedly that's the trick. That's what does it, but who knows? Okay, next caller.
Hi, Spencer, a long-time listener here. I found your podcast probably 4 years ago and listened to every single one and listen every week. And I just love all the mental health stuff that you talk about also and share. And I've listened to Obituary, and it's helped so much because my grandma passed away a little over a year ago. And I feel like that just, I don't know, before listening to your podcast, just brought up a lot of good ideas and thoughts and all that. So thank you for your podcast and for Miss Madison. But I called in because I finally thought of a story and can talk about it. So my grandma passed away, like I said, about a year ago, and she had a couple brain surgeries, and so her head had to be shaved. My grandma was 92 and very old school. So my mom was like, okay, the funeral home said that they would, add hair and everything and make it look good. Well, they didn't. And my mom was very stressed about it, how grief can be with, things. And so she started to get really upset and was like, I don't know what to do. She would be so mad if they knew what her hair looked like and all that. So, the funeral home sent us a picture of how they had like fixed her hair. So that was like traumatizing to see a photo of, but we're doing it for my grandma. So we are like, okay, well, we're going to have to like try to order a wig or something or get, pieces of hair. And we're like asking them, they were not being helpful. It was like honestly a horrible experience. But we ended up ordering a wig. And then I went down and like another like tufts of hair or something. And so then I went down, my mom was like, I'm so sorry, but I can't do this. And I was like, oh my God, I can't either. But I was trying to be strong for my mom. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. So, and for my grandma. So we go down there my cousin and I, and she goes, I can't go in either. And I was like, oh my God. So I had to go in and fix my grandma's hair and see her, you know, on the table, like prepared and everything. And it was like so traumatizing. But my cousin and I were able to laugh about it after. But I feel like listening to Obituary just helped me so much. It was just such an experience. So anyways, I'm going to end it there, but just sharing another, you know, funeral story, I guess.
Okay, love you for that. Your grandma is probably like, can someone get in here and put a wig on me? Jesus Christ, I cannot be here looking like this. It's such like a weird, uncomfortable thing. Like we get, like you would never be weird about being near one of your relatives when they're alive, but like just the fact that they're not alive anymore, it becomes this like instantaneous I don't want to go near them. And I mean, I just know your grandma was probably like, thank you for being the one strong enough to come through and put this wig on my head. Um, it's little things like that though that make, you know, such an impact, and we want to respect our deceased, and I'm sure she just loved you for doing that. I mean, listen, yeah, I'd feel freaked out too. Some things you just got to do though. But I do remember like everyone's so different with seeing the deceased. Everyone in my family gets cremated. And I remember when my mom passed away, I had to fly home while it was happening. It was very traumatic. She died like while I was on the plane trying to get home. And I I remember the next day, my brother was somewhere else, and he was gonna go. They were gonna take my brother to go see my mother's body, and they asked me like, "Do you want to go?" And in my heart, I know that I have heard my mom say things like, "Oh, so and so wouldn't want to be remembered like that." Blah 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 blah. I don't think my mom would have, you know, cared. Like I'm like, she's not there anymore. And so I was the only one in my family who was like, I don't need to go. Like my sisters had both gone and seen her. They were there when it was all going down. My dad had seen her ever. And I just, for some reason, was like, it wasn't like I was scared of seeing her body. I think I was just in shock, honestly. But I was also like, I don't want to go see her because I know that that image will just be stuck in my head. So I know it's such a hard thing to do to even be around the deceased, but yeah, I don't think there's like a right or wrong way to handle those kinds of things. Like I did have fear that I would eventually regret that decision. Like, oh man, like I wish I had gone and seen my mom's body, or just like maybe it would have provided some closure. And then I also think there's like an animalistic thing sometimes where you're like, do we have this innate sense that like we need to see somebody's body in order to get that closure, or for our minds to fully understand that that person is gone? And luckily, I don't look back and regret that decision. I feel very like confident that that was the decision I made at the time. I don't feel like, oh, I needed to see her body for closure. But she's also one of the only people I could imagine not wanting to for some reason. I just had this feeling, like overwhelming feeling, like she wouldn't want me to see her like that. So who knows? Could have been, you know, getting a message from her or something. But I, so I applaud you for being brave enough to go and help your grandma out like that. Super sweet, and I'm sure she really, really appreciated it. All right, should we do one more? Let's see. Um, let's see what we got here.
Hi, Spencer. My name's Amber. Also, hi, Madison. Oh my gosh. You may remember me. I sent you guys the coffin spinner where I made the coffin with the side bitch. Anyway, I have an idea that I've been wanting to run by you. Perhaps a cult leader obituary field trip. Anyway, so I've been thinking, in London, there is something known as the Magnificent Seven, which is these 7 amazing Victorian cemeteries. And so I've been to like 4 of them, and it's my life goal to go to all 7. So I was thinking, like, sometime in the future, wouldn't it be rad if you and Madison could organize a trip to London for Geoffs, and you could visit the Magnificent 7 Victorian cemeteries, because there's so many cool things there. Anyway, I've been to 4 of them. It's really cool. If you want to know more, please let me know. My name is Amber. I'm in San Diego, and I'm a longtime fan of both of the pods. Yeah, so love you guys. Bye.
Oh my God, hi, Amber. I love that idea so much, and I would love to do that. And it's so funny because literally right before I sat down to record, I was on the phone with Madison, and I was telling her she needs to renew her podcast or her podcast. Well, I hope she renews her podcast. I'd love the job security. She needs to renew her passport so that we can go on plan some fun trips. And that sounds like an incredible trip. And with the Geoffs, I wonder if we could organize. I wonder if we could organize something like that. I think we all need to go bug Madison to get her passport. Go DM Madison on Instagram. Say, get your passport, girlie. We've got places to go. We've got to go overseas. We've got to plan a trip to see these 7 cemeteries from the Victorians. I absolutely love that idea, Amber. But that, I think, is where we're gonna wrap things up for the week, because I have to go. I simply must be going. If you want to call in, the number is 747-322-0273, or you can write in the old-fashioned way to Spencer@cultleader.com. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for watching this, and I'll keep doing them as long as you keep watching. Listen, one thing about me, I will talk as long as there is somebody listening. So that's it. Hot Dog, do you want to say hi? Do you want to say anything? Nothing? Nothing for the cameras? Okay. Well, that's it. I will see you on Tuesday with a brand new episode of Cult Leader. And until then, hope everyone has a great, safe weekend and is free from ghosts and spirits and all kinds of things. Okay. Love you guys. Goodbye.